we get started, I'm going to ask a couple questions. I see a lot of young faces around this room, so I'm going to ask, why are you here? Why are you here? Because you want to see the eclipse. How about anybody else? Why are you here? Yes, sir.
Because I want to learn more about astronomy.
You want to learn more about astronomy. How many just likes to look at the stars? Just like to look at the stars. Why are you here? To learn stuff? Just any stuff? About the things that we're learning. Now that's great. And we're learning about stars and about light, and all of that has an effect. How many of you guys have a camera at home? Just a regular camera. You all know how that camera works? It has a lens in it, right? A lens. And so what happens with lenses, it's important that you understand this, because I want to talk to you about how a telescope works a little bit, so that you understand what it does in these different types. By the way, anybody have a telescope at home? You have a telescope? You have a telescope? How often do you use it?
Like once a month, right?
Once a month?
Give or take, yeah.
Okay. What does your telescope look like? Does it look like something like these ones here? Or is it one of those long type tubes? You guys know what I'm talking about? It looks like a scope. It's just this long thing you look through.
This
Which
is
does
kind
it
of in
look like?
between.
Kind of in between?
Yeah.
You have a telescope?
It's my dad's.
It's your dad's? What's it look like?
It's like those big ones, and we only use them like once a year.
Once a year? Once a year? Is that when you go camping?
We don't really use it really much.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I used to have one in my room. It was one of those long ones. It sat there. Eventually, I just hung my jacket on. So, yes, sir. You got one? So you can't see through it because of how it all works. Oh, you can't take it out, so you can adjust it. Yeah, you can get those repaired. The ivies. Okay. So when they get disrepair, like mine wasn't disrepair, it wasn't broken, but once it's not working, like I said, mine became a jacket hanger. Yes, ma'am. You do? Does it look like either of those two up there, or is it one of the long tube ones? Long tube ones. So I'm going to talk to you guys. You got one too? And the big one there? Does it look like the big one? Is it a small tube like this, or is it really long? But it's really huge. Okay. Huge bush. So let me tell you, the reason I'm asking you that is, this is how cameras work, real quick. First off, my name is Jerry Fishoka. I have a degree in lasers, electronics, and optics, which are lenses. Okay? And so, the way lenses work, there are two types of lenses. There is what we call concave lens, concave. And what happens with, easy way to remember these guys is, cave does what? It makes a hole, right? So if it makes a hole when it curves in, it's called a concave lens. Convex is the opposite. It bends outward. So take a lens that looks like this. It has a flat side here, but it bends this way. So what happens with light when it comes into a concave lens is light travels into the lens like this, hits this concave, and it starts doing this. The only one that passes straight through is the one that's right in the middle. Okay? Convex lenses do the opposite. They bend things light inward. So the light hits it, and it bends in, and comes through. So inside your lenses, or your cameras, what happens is, as they move apart and they come closer, these two lenses inside, this is how you get zoom. Think about it for a second. If I move this further back, the light that was traveling here goes further up, right? And the only light that hits this lens is the one that's closer in. So it's narrowing it down and giving me just a small portion of what I can see. And the same thing is happening inside your telescopes. So those long ones get so much zoom out of that. Does that make sense? When you're looking out at stars, so you can see so much of the sky that zooms in. These telescopes, these ones here, have mirrors in them as well. And what it does is it bounces that light back and forth through those lenses to give you more zoom. Okay? So why is that important? Well, question for you again. When you look up at the sky, from sitting here on Earth, what does a star look like? What's it look like?
It looks like a big ball of brightness.
Just looks like is it a big ball? Some stars are what? So small you can barely see them, right? They look like a little dot of light way out there in the sky, right? You can barely see some stars. In fact, if the star is so far out, you might not see it, even though it's sending light to us all the time, right? Because of the fact that it's just so far away and we can't see it. But all of a sudden, when I can zoom in on just a little area, I might be able to see more of that space. And that's what telescopes do for us. They allow us to see a little narrower. So, when you look at this telescope, for an example, you'll notice that this telescope, and it's important that you understand this before I show you that one, this telescope has two optic pieces on it that you can look through. This one here is what, kind of like your camera, it's a wide-angle lens. It shows us what we can see. It shows us a larger part of the sky. It helps us to get an idea of where we're pointing the telescope. Does that make sense? But once we get into the sky, we start looking through our lens here. This is the one where everything's bouncing back and forth and then comes up through the eyepiece, and it gives us that zoomed in area, so we're only getting a smaller portion of the sky. Why is that important? I'm going to show you, or walk you through something real quick. This is called Dwarf Labs. This is great. But even with this, when we zoom in on a planet or something, it still may only be so big and we can't see it very well. It looks like an orange ball in there, but you're not seeing any of the detail. You're not seeing all of the stars around it. You're not seeing all of the background from it. You're just seeing still, we got closer, but we're still only seeing a little round orange ball, white ball dot. I mean, it doesn't look still like much. This piece, go ahead and go to the next tab for me, Alex, please. So, this piece runs an app inside that tells me when I have my, you can see them here in the front, I have my lights on, tells me it's powered on, and how much battery life I have. And then inside it has photos. Because just like your camera, it works with lenses, a wide-angle lens, and a telephoto lens. And inside it has lenses that bounce back and forth. So I actually have on this camera the same thing that's on that telescope. I have a wide-angle lens sitting right here, and I have a telephoto lens so that I can get a big picture of the sky where I'm at, but then I have a narrow picture in the zoom, okay? Just looking through these. Now, it also takes pictures so that unlike that camera, or that one, when I'm done looking at it, I lose what I looked at, right? I'm done, the night's over, I walk away, and I just have to remember what I saw. But this one I can actually take pictures with and build an album and hold all my pictures inside so I can go back and look at. Yes, remember, you said you go once a year, right? Once a year you get to use your camera. I know. But you know, the kids say the darndest things. But that's being said,
She'll say a lot.
so you can, but it's been a year since you've gone, right? A year. So when do you get to see your pictures again?
This is our second year
This is your second year.
that we haven't used it.
So, love it. All right. So, that being said, you do have to set up your settings, and so I'm going to walk you through in just a minute what this looks like and how I work with this for a second. Alex, go ahead to my next one. So, it works on an app, and here's the cool things, Mom and Dad, about this thing. How many of you have kids that you have in other events, i.e. dance, ballet, sports, football, soccer, basketball, etc., right? This program, this thing is so cool because I want you to think, especially if you're in sports. In sports, as your kid's out there playing soccer, you're trying to record them, you're standing there doing this, right? Tell you what you don't have to do anymore with this as an adult. You get your kid in there, you lock it on your object, it will track for you. So the purpose of this is, the other problem with a telescope, and I'll get you what I'm talking about. The other problem with the telescope is, I've got to constantly move as the star moves to get there. And, oops, I went too far. Now I'm trying to figure out where it's at inside the system, right? Where did I lose it to? Today's electronics, this actually has a base that allows it to automatically rotate 340 degrees left to right and 240 degrees up and down. And it tracks automatic. So I zoom in on my kid, I tag it my kid, and it says that's the object I want you to track. And as my kid's running up and down that soccer field, playing whatever they're doing, it's tracking them, it's moving with them, it's recording it, and I can just sit back and enjoy knowing that somewhere in there I got a good video of whatever it was they were doing versus me doing this. And we've all seen those videos, right? Like this. So, it has dual purpose, is all I'm saying. Because really what it is a camera. It's really for astrophotography, though we call it a telescope, and though they call it a telescope. So it has a photography mode, but it also has, if I click where it says photo in here, Alex, go to my next one. I'll start walk up here to my laptop. It has an astro feature that goes in there. Now, first kids, question for you. When you try to go outside and look at the stars tonight, Dr. Cott already said this to you, and you go out there and you look tonight, what's the problem you're going to have seeing the stars?
It's probably going to be cloudy.
Okay, so it's cloudy. The skies aren't going to be able to be clear to see through, right? How about if you live in the city? How well can you see stars? Not too good. Why?
Because the stars give light, and the sun gives more light, so you can't see it.
Okay, that's why you can't see them during the day. Absolutely. But something else is brighter. But you're on the right track. Why else?
Right? If you're in the city, there's a bunch of buildings with lights that block out stars.
Absolutely. You know that your eye has a pupil, right? And your pupil expands or contracts inside your eye based on how much light's in there to let more or less light in. So when you're in the city, your pupil's already contracting because of all the light around, so you're getting to see less light, right? So all that background noise, all that white light, we call it, is having a problem. So the first thing we're going to do with the telescope is we need to be somewhere where it's called dark. And so that's what your darks are. We're going to find absolute black. The best place to look at stars is out in the country at night where there's no clouds out, right? And you can actually see it. Camping is a perfect time to take your telescope with you. All right, next slide, Alex. So, in this astro mode, there's a couple of things that I have to do with my camera. Now, this is for astro mode, not what I was talking about earlier, parents, about tracking your kid for soccer, because it can be used during the day as well. But that being said, first thing we got to do is run the dark frame. What dark frame does for us is it turns around and it makes the picture absolutely black. I need to know what black is. Does that make sense? Pure black. So you just take it in like a box in your cabinet, you put a bag over it, you just put it in pure darkness, and you run it. It takes about 20 minutes for it to run and get just like what is black. That way when I'm outside, it knows what noise, white lights, etc. to filter out. Does that make sense? All right. Then I go in and I take my camera, and just like I used my lens here, I figure out what part of the sky I want to look at. And then I hit calibrate. And here's the cool thing. It takes about 3 cycles through to look up there and see what stars you're already at in the sky. So it looks up there and it says what Dr. Cox was talking about. You're pointing me at the North Star. You're pointing me at Polaris. And this is the Big Dipper that you have inside the frame. And this is where I'm at. And so now I know where I'm at. Remember I told you it tracks, it pans left and right? So now I know where I'm at. Now I can go into a star target, pick something I want to see, and it will actually pan and zoom over to that star for me and let me see as much of it as I can. As long as it's within the screen. I'm going to show you. That's a good question. Absolutely. Now, as I do that, I tell it like how many pictures I want to take of that, what type of pictures I want. So like Dr. Cott said earlier, 999 pictures is like the ideal, right? And then it overlaps them all to figure out what that really looks like. I'll come back to that in a minute. So as that's doing it, you can preview it. You can look at, choose whether it's 24K or 2K, but then you hit start imaging, and then you got to wait. And I really do hate to say that, but you've got to wait for all those pictures to be taken. Because again, this is astrophotography that results in what a telescope would give you. Does that make sense? All right, Alex, next one. So I'm going to walk you through what I do when I get this app. I come in, I get on my iPhone, I find my scope, and I connect to it. So give it a second to connect. Boom. Says successful connection. Now, parents, you need to know because this is a lot like a drone. I'll show you this later in a minute. It comes up on my little video clip of me walking through it. But you do have to go in and set some settings. I.e., I want to make sure everything's working in here. I think my next part of this video, I'm going to go into my settings and talk to you about, like, here's the cool part. I can connect it to my Wi-Fi. So now every time I want to connect it, instead of using my phone battery and all that stuff or all that Bluetooth, I can just connect through my Wi-Fi, speed that up. But if not, I can still connect to my phone through my Bluetooth. I'm going to tell it where I'm at. I'm in the U.S. That was where it was when I started playing around with it. For better pictures, I could tell the camera has its own CPU. Let it process there versus using my own background mode. So I turn on my CPU mode to help. And my MTM is making sure that it goes to my SD card. Because you can put an SD card in it, like I said, to record. I can also pass it straight through to my computer if I want to just plug it in through a USB-C port. So I can go just straight to my computer. I do have to go in and tell it where I'm at, so that for that tracking capabilities. So you got 2 ways you can do that. You can manually tell it where you're at, just enable off of your phone, right, your Android or your iPhone, location services. It figures out you're in Killeen or Harker Heights or wherever you're at. So once you get through all of that, you click on the app, go back to the photo, and I click on the app, and it takes me inside. Now, over on the left, pause it for a second, Alex, please. Don't go back. You get ahead of me. Back. Thank you. And go ahead and just let it run, and I'll talk. Grab forward, if you will. So about, keep going. Give me a second, guys. I'll do it. That's the problem with being in the back.
Doing that, let me say that I've got books up here. I highly recommend. They're little books. They're cheap for eclipse, for astronomy, for the technology we're talking about.
It was.
You can come up with your cell phone, take a picture of the cover, and if you find one you're interested in.
All right. The wheel on the right-hand side, it's up right now, allows me to control how fast I want that head to pan and move. So how fast do I want it to track? Guys don't want to make it too slow, especially if you don't want you're shooting, because then it just really, and then you'll still lose things. So usually I leave it at about 3, but sometimes, like if I'm outside shooting that sports that we were talking about, I might put it to 4 or 5. Over on the left, that little green dot, depending on how I switch it, I can switch it between a little green dot and I can switch it between those 4 arrows up top that allows me to control manually pan that camera to where I want it to be to find my area in the sky. Go ahead and hit play. All right, so that's those 2 features here, whether I want to control the movement or how fast I want it to pan. Now, right now, I'm just moving through the sky, trying to find, you saw that little white dot. Could have been a light in the sky, could have been the moon. I'm still moving around. That's something you have to know as you're panning, right? What am I looking at? Where's my camera at? Until I get some stars. Once I get some stars in the sky, and everything gets out there, again, I went to the dark, and I don't know why I went to the dark frames, because I've already done that before, but I did talk to you about you have to get your absolute black. Make sure you do that the first time you get it. That, by the way, takes 20 minutes. You don't want to wait to do that until you're outside at night, because you're waiting 20 minutes to do that part right there. Do that, like I said, in a cabinet in your room, put it somewhere where it's dark, get blacks. All right, pause. So, after the dark frames are done, the next thing I'm going to move is to that first, go ahead and hit play for a second. I'm going to find where I'm at in the sky. So go ahead, come on, to the sky. Here we go. Once I'm in the sky, I'm going to hit the focus button, and it's going to autofocus, and it's going to start finding these different stars. And you're going to see this is the night sky that I was looking at that time. There's something red out there. There's something white, which means there's a red star out there. There's a couple of other stars out there. But that's just what I was doing, was focusing on getting the focus to the sky, and then I hit calibration. So it could figure out where I was. That runs 3 passes, and you'll see it down there real quick. 1, come on. And after that, it knows where I'm at in the sky. There we go. First calibration, second calibration. It doesn't take long to calibrate. First calibration, second calibration, and then third, I look at those dots that it's seeing and knowing my location. And when it's done, I can then go over here under the function features to the star chart I was talking about and hit pause for 1 second there, right there. Thank you, Alex. On the star chart, it's so cool because they already have programmed in all these different stars and clusters and nebulas and things for me to see, right? So when I mouse over, go ahead and hit play for a second, Alex. When I mouse over it and go through, if it's not available, remember that horizon we were talking about? It's below the horizon. It's going to tell me you can't see this right now in the sky. Based on where you're at and how it works, you can't see it. So don't even try. And then the other one, if it works, I can actually click on it. It'll be green for me to click, and it will go to that area. So I think in here it was NC 7000, I believe that I clicked. No, M42. And so now it's tracked and it's gone in. Once it finds it and gets to it, I can tell it how many pictures, like Dr. Cox talked about, I want it to take. And so I also have to set how long of an exposure, how long I want it to take. So think about light from way out there. Anybody ever try to take a picture of the sky at night? Do you get much? You get blackness, right? Because it's so far away in your picture, your camera's going 60th of a second, click, I got nothing. Unless I get the light was really close for me to get, right? So I set it at 15 seconds and I run it. And it starts running. Are you playing it now? Yeah, it'll start running pictures for me every 15, it keeps the lens open 15 seconds, but it'll take up to, if I put it that way, 999 pictures for me. Click, 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 click. Now you can think about how long it's going to take. So as it's taking that picture, it's also panning, scanning, tracking the whole system, right? As its star moves that way, it's always focused on my star and my area. And so as pictures start to come in, I've got 15 pictures now. It's starting to, I've got one right now, 15 seconds with the gain up in the light. But now I've got 2 pictures, and I'll have like 3, and then 15, and then they'll start stacking them. And I go in and I made a setting on my gamma for my black background, my reds, my blues. And in the end, as you can see, it's starting to take all these pictures and stack them. And as it does that, I get a better and better picture of what I'm looking at in the sky. Pause, because that's the end result after 999 or however many pictures I took that night. You can't see that through a telescope. What you saw in a telescope was what I saw when I pointed my camera there, the little purple dot. This is astrophotography. We call it a telescope, or they call it a telescope, because that's what it is. It's zooming in, it's taking those pictures, and it's showing you the night sky. But it's doing it by taking multiple pictures, overlapping them, until you get that pretty picture that you see. And notice I did say pretty, because I'm from Texas. Not pretty. That pretty picture that you see in the night sky. So, Alex, go ahead and hit down here for me. I want to show you, you can hit this, go back to this for me for 1 second. Right here. To go into play. All right, and then pause, just leave it there for a second. We're going to go to the next screen. So what are we trying to do? You guys talked about the solar eclipse. You want to see the solar eclipse. You want to see these things. So do we. So right now, what we're doing is we